Hello, everybody. I'm Terry Owens with the District Department of Transportation, better known as DDOT, and welcome to DDOT Delivers. Each week, we take you inside one of the district's largest government agencies for a look at what we're doing to serve residents and visitors of the District of Columbia. Today, our guest is Earl Eutsler, Associate Director of DDOT's Urban Forestry Division. Earl, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Terry. Glad to be here today.
Earl, Urban Forestry. When I got to DDOT, I was like, wait a minute, this is a transportation agency. What are we doing with trees?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about the mission of the Urban Forestry Division.
Yeah, well, we like to say that we're the greenest part of the street. We really complete each road here in the district. And these are critical roadway infrastructure elements, these street trees are. And they're, as an item of infrastructure in the right-of-way, they're one of the only things that actually appreciates over time. So as opposed to, say, a street sign or a traffic signal or a mile of paving, our street trees actually become more valuable over time and provide an immense return on investment. And why are they important? Well, they're important for a lot of reasons. There's the district is actually known as the City of Trees because of the prominence of trees in the original L'Enfant Plan, which is an important, obviously, a founding plan of the city, and then that commitment's been revisited multiple times. The era of Boss Shepherd in the late 1800s, when he nearly bankrupted the city, actually planting trees, was subsequently run out of town, and then again through the Macmillan Plan, which established some of our most prominent green spaces, like the Fort Circle parks and whatnot. And then more recently with the the Sustainable DC Plan, which is now in its second iteration. Each of these steps along our cultural heritage pathway have reaffirmed our commitment to creating urban green spaces all throughout the city.
You referenced street trees. For people not familiar with the lingo of our agency, what's the difference between a street tree and some other kind of tree?
Yeah, so these are the trees that exist primarily between curbs and sidewalks, and they're the founding purpose of our division. Now, over time, what we do has come to grow and become enlarged. So we now don't take care of just the public street trees. We also take care of trees on other public spaces, such as parks, schools.
And that's a relatively new development, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's that took effect a little over a year ago. And so that's actually been a really important change for the division because we've been, as you might know, and many of the listeners are probably aware, we've been planting street trees very aggressively. So we're planting each season, which runs from October through April, nearly 100 trees a day, weather permitting, throughout that entire period, for a total of over 8,000 each year. And we've been at that pace for several years now, and we're very quickly closing the gap on available street tree spaces around the city. So when legislation was passed and signed into law by Mayor Bowser, assigning authority to plant and care for trees on other public spaces, it unlocked a whole new area for us to expand our program into, which helps us deliver these benefits in more places and for more areas of the city.
And so as it relates to our tree canopy, which was another new term for me, I didn't know that when I arrived at DDOT, what is it we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so the city has a citywide goal of 40% urban tree canopy, and currently we're at a little over 38.5%. And so for the listeners, the urban tree canopy is essentially what a bird sees when it flies over the city. And when it looks down, if a bird sees trees, then that's considered urban tree canopy. And currently, like I said, a little over 38% of the city is covered in leaves. And much of that is not directly managed by our division. Only the public municipal section is. But we do indirectly manage all private trees as well through our permitting authority as it relates to the removal of mature trees on private property. So between all of the public municipal lands and the trees that originate on those spaces that we directly manage, and then all of the mature trees on private property, we kind of have an end-to-end relationship with all of the trees in the city.
So tell us a little about your team.
Yeah, we're really fortunate. We have an excellent team, approximately 40 people, and they come to the group with a really diverse set of skills and backgrounds. We have 24 urban foresters or arborists, and with training in a wide range of things from urban planning to forest entomology. We have a handful of landscape architects which help plan and advise both DDOT internally as well as other stakeholders who are doing work in and around the public space to best protect the existing trees and make proper provision for future trees. We have a field team that does excellent work every day of the week to respond to any sort of tree emergency that emerges. And a handful of talented assistants and program analysts. And so together, this is a group that responds to over 13,000 service requests every year, prunes over 12,000 trees a year, plants over 8,000, and removes just under 2,000 trees a year. And so, and we're really proud of that ratio. We've been now for about 5 years planting 4 new trees for every 1 we remove. So we're really doing a lot of work to green up the city.
And so how do people access the services that you offer?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier we get about 13,000 service requests a year, and most of those come from people either calling 311 or by visiting 311.dc.gov. There are a handful of apps that you can use to make requests. And we really encourage public to do that, and for 2 reasons. One is it creates a formal record for both the requester and our agency to be able to refer back to and understand how we're making progress in regards to what people are asking for. But it also creates a record of our interactions with the request. So if somebody goes on to 311.dc.gov, places a request, every time we update that request, they get notification, so they understand exactly what we're doing in response to what they've asked for.
Okay, in case you're just joining us, you're listening to DDOT Delivers on 96.3 HD4 and DCRadio.gov. I'm Terry Owens. I'm joined in studio today by Earl Eutsler. He's the Associate Director of DDOT's Urban Forestry Division, and we're talking all things trees. Earl, tell me how technology has changed what you're doing.
Yeah, so I have the benefit of having been with DDOT for 15 years now. And I know it's
you
hard
had to look around when you said that.
I can't believe it either. Lucky me. But in that time, we've undergone a really dramatic transformation as it relates to the technology we use to assess, manage, characterize, and care for the tree resource here in the district. So when I first got here, we were using purely paper-based methods. So people were we had a tree inventory that was old and outdated, and had some records hadn't been updated since the 1970s, and we've slowly but surely shifted into an all digital management system where we have a very accurate GIS-based tree inventory that's being updated by our team at a pace of around 300 trees a day are being inspected and updated in our inventory. And every work management, every asset management activity we perform, whether it's pruning a tree, removing a tree, planting a new tree, is all cataloged and captured in a GIS-based asset management system. And it's because of the advent of these technologies that we've been able to really make great progress on planting a tree in every space all across the city. And address other structural elements of our program. For instance, we're able to scrutinize the composition of the forest. So, in order to make sure that we have a forest that is resilient in the face of emerging pests and disease threats, we need to understand what the species composition is, what the size range and structure of our forest is, and we use all of that information to guide the decisions that we make about what to plant and where to plant it and how to care for what we have currently growing.
And you also recently introduced some technology that allows residents to be engaged in the care and nurturing of trees across the district. We'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to DDOT Delivers. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to DDOT Delivers. I'm Terry Owens, and we are joined in studio today by Earl Eutsler. He is the Associate Director of DDOT's Urban Forestry Division, and we were talking about technology and the role it's playing and how we care for street trees in the District of Columbia. Earl, I remember, was it last summer that we rolled out the app, the tree watering app?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that's been an exciting development, and so give me a second to talk about this.
Okay.
This is an interesting thing that we put together. So I mentioned earlier that we're planting around 8,000 trees every year, and it's a significant investment that the city's making. And we do water these plants twice a month during the summer. And that's good, but they need more help. And so one of the ways we've leveraged technology to increase the community engagement in our program and support our newly planted trees is to put together a watering app. And you can find this by visiting waterdctrees.com, and it'll pull up a map of the trees near where you are at that moment that are recently planted in the last 2 years. And you can click on each of those trees and understand information such as the species, its condition, the date it was planted, as well as the date it was last watered. And then you can record a watering event. You can take a picture while you're adding a little water to your tree and upload it into our database. And we've had a lot of good. That app has been met with good reception. And it's interesting, you put something like that out there, and you assume that people will use this to identify and the trees that need water and water them, and they have done that. But curiously, it's also been referenced several times in the media as a tree finding guide, because you can pull it up and it'll tell you every tree that's around you wherever you are, and so you can get an idea of the species, the size, and condition of all the trees across the city through this app as well.
Have we been able to engage the school system with that technology? I would think that would be a great learning tool.
Yeah, we haven't been able to leverage that in a school setting yet, but we've done a lot of work with schools. We think of that as an excellent opportunity for us to raise the awareness of students about the importance of trees in the city and the environment generally. And so we've done things, we've had year-long engagements through an Adopt a School program at Ketchum Elementary. We've hosted Arbor Day celebrations at schools multiple times over the years. And we've even done training sessions with classes where teachers have had us in, and we've done presentations on the habitat trees provide, the benefits to the environment, the uses of trees when they're no longer a tree and have been converted into lumber, and things of that nature. And that's an area of the program that's growing. We're trying to do more of that engagement and outreach.
You guys are constantly innovating, and one of the coolest stories that I heard recently was around the DDOT Sawmill. And I was like, wait, what are they doing down in urban forestry now? They got a sawmill?
Yeah.
What is this?
Absolutely. So this has been a really fun and rewarding partnership with the U.S. Forest Service. Everyone every day encounters wood products, whether it is the paper that you write on, the newspaper that you read, a chair that you sit in, or a desk that you work at. But it's easy to think of that as some abstract wood that comes from some faraway forest, and perhaps it did. What we're trying to do with this sawmill is harvest high-grade, valuable timber from our tree care management operation and mill it to give it an extra life after it's done growing as a tree. And so currently this program has been focused on diverting wood from our tree management operations that is high value and can be milled into durable wood products. And we've been producing primarily benches, and we've made these benches available to schools that have either an outdoor classroom or a school garden.
Well, let me ask you, because I want to talk about the schools that you've helped out already, but how do you identify the trees that you're going to take down?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so DDOT only removes trees that are dead, dying, diseased, or otherwise hazardous. So we absolutely love trees. And so we're only taking down trees that need to be removed.
Okay.
And so of that subset of trees, which I said is about, it's roughly 2,000 trees citywide a year. Many of those trees are too small to be milled up or have substantial structural defects and or decay that render the wood inappropriate for milling recovery purposes. But that said, there'll be several logs that we process every year that are decay-free, are large enough diameter to be worthwhile, can be harvested in lengths long enough to process, and are straight enough to be milled into durable wood products. And so we've built several benches, we've developed stump seating, and we're working with OTSI, the Office of the State Superintendent, to partner with all of the schools who have outdoor classrooms and school gardens to try to assist their program, and in some cases get their programs off the ground altogether.
I got a chance to get out to one of the schools to see the installation. Talk about how that's been received.
Yeah, so our first project was delivering an outdoor classroom for Garrison Elementary in the Shaw neighborhood of DC, and they were undergoing a modernization program, and we had the benefit of working with their team early on to design and develop the components for an outdoor classroom, and that's been a super success. The teachers have loved it. There are several components. Some of these large benches, which were placed in permanently on location. They're too large for anyone to move around. But then there is a more modular section, which are these stump seats, which can be repositioned based on where the teacher wants to work from. Mm-hmm. And they've got a board out there as well that they can use. And according to the teachers I've spoken with, it's been a big hit. Obviously, the children love it. A lot of research too has shown that children have better educational outcomes when they can study and be immersed in a green, natural setting.
And so how do you build on this effort?
Yeah, so we wanted to make sure we had a program that was open and available to all schools. And so in talking with OSSI, we realized that they could unlock not only DCPS, the traditional DCPS schools, but also those public charter schools.
Okay.
And give us sort of that single point of access, and we've been able to leverage their team that is supporting school gardens and outdoor classrooms, and they've connected us with an entire network across the city of schools who've been interested and willing to participate in this program. And
you just happened to have somebody on your staff that knew how to operate a sawmill?
Well, I mentioned earlier that we've got a team with a diverse set of background, skills, and experiences, and absolutely. So we've got two gentlemen who are at this point quite expert in mill operation, and we've been doing some fun time-lapse recording and whatnot of what they've been doing, because it's really spectacular to watch this the process of converting a tree into lumber. So we've been able to do a little bit of training with these folks, and they've become quite proficient in converting this material and reclaiming this urban wood.
Fantastic. Well, this is certainly a project that we're going to continue to follow, and as you get into more schools, we can't wait to share those stories. Not only are young people benefiting, but the city as a whole, as you're able to repurpose this valuable resource that a lot of people take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one other part of the program that I'd like to mention, and that is we're also working with the two vocational high schools who have carpentry programs. Ah,
yes, I remember that now.
Yeah, and this has been particularly rewarding because we're able to sort of assist in skill development for high school students, and we're particularly proud of the fact that we're able to help enrich what is an otherwise traditional carpentry education experience with knowledge of the conversion process of moving from a tree to workable lumber, which we think will serve them well as they pursue careers in carpentry. So we're working with Phelps ACE, Academy Architecture, Construction, and Engineering, as well as IDEA PCS in Deanwood, working with both of those schools, providing lumber, materials, equipment, and engagement to support their carpentry vocational programs.
Fantastic. You're listening to DDOT Delivers. I'm Terry Owens. Our guest is Earl Eutsler. He's the Associate Director of the Urban Forestry Division at the District Department of Transportation. We're going to take a break, come back, and wrap things up for us. Yes, stay with us. We'll be right back. And we are back. This is DDOT Delivers. I'm Terry Owens, and we are talking all things trees today, because we've got in studio with us Earl Eutsler. He's the Associate Director of the Urban Forestry Division at the District Department of Transportation. And Earl, one of the things we want to do with this program is share insights on some of the people that work at DDOT. You know, the public hears about the Department of Transportation and the variety of roles that we have there, and most people have no idea how you come to a position like the one that you have, or what a transportation planner does, or a safety technician. Take me back. When was it that you decided that you wanted a future in trees?
Yeah, it's funny. I had always been interested in the environmental field, but kept kind of falling into arboriculture and urban forestry as a profession, and it started with chance encounters that just continued for years. So it started as a job I was doing in the summers during college. And that was tree work, tree climbing, and caring for trees directly. And I did a little bit of travel and ended up working in places like New Orleans, working in their municipal tree management program for a period. And then it's a funny story, I was sitting for a certification exam about 16, 17 years ago, and seated next to me at the table was the current director of the Urban Forestry Division in DDOT.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and as was the next Urban Forestry Associate Director. So I was seated next to a gentleman named Ainsley Caldwell and another guy named John Thomas, who you might have on this program at some point. And that was all just luck and chance. And I'd say probably 8 to 10 months later, I called the then Associate Director Ainsley Caldwell just to check in, because we'd had a nice chat while we were sitting there. He said, "Oh God, I've been trying to find you," and I don't know how true that was, but he was funny. He said, "We're looking to hire, and can you come in tomorrow?" And I was like, "Well, that's awful fast, but I guess I can come down and we can talk." And so that was 15 years ago, and I entered the organization pretty close to the ground floor, starting as what they call a tree maintenance control monitor. It's a program or a position we don't even have any longer, and have worked alongside my colleagues and risen up to the top spot. And I'm delighted to be there. But I do want to just emphasize that we have a really remarkable staff. Whether it's the folks that run this sawmill, we have a whole team that cares for feral bee colonies, which are constantly taking up residence in our trees. And everyone's just remarkably dedicated. And I think that as this program rolls on, you'll find listeners will discover that pretty much sums up most of the divisions in DDOT. And so I think all of us are grateful for the opportunity to serve the residents of the district here at Urban Forestry Division.
Most people think about the agency, and they think about things like roadways and bike lanes and things like that. What do you want people to know about the agency that the average person probably doesn't consider when they hear the name DDOT?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I hear from new hires quite often is they come in and a couple of months in, they say, "Wow, I had no idea DDOT did so much." And I think that's applicable to our division and specifically, where I meet lots of people and they say, "I'm sorry, you do what?" And then they look around and they say, "I'd never thought about that." So I would say that whether it's our active transportation and all of the Bikeshare and the advent of dockless transportation technologies and sharing options, our Circulator bus system, the work we do to get students to school on the Metro bus and Metro rail system, DDOT really is a department in the district that touches every aspect of your life. And that's one of the things we love about the tree program, because this is the forest that is with you everywhere you travel in the city. It's along every street, along every road, and we're doing our best to make it the best forest for the public.
You touched on something, and I'd be remiss if I didn't have you comment just a bit about the work that you do with bees. I've got a nice stash of honey in my office, courtesy of the work that you do. Tell us what it is you're doing.
Yeah, so this started almost 10 years ago with a tree near RFK Stadium that was in poor health. It had a lot of decayed area and needed to be removed. And when we went to remove it, we try to communicate with the residents that live adjacent to these trees and let them know what we're doing to the tree in front of their home. And we shared with these neighbors that this tree's got to be removed. It's got all this decay in the crown. And they said, well, we understand that makes sense. But just so you know, there's a beehive living in this one of these limbs up there. So we were like, oh, wow, okay, well, we got to take that into account. And so we started looking at the tree, and we thought, well, I guess we could probably do a management treatment that we wouldn't otherwise do, right? And take out the top of this tree and leave the rest of it there to accommodate these bees. But the residents were all about that. So we said, well, let's give it a shot. So in the process of doing that, we got to know the DC Beekeeping Association, which is a really great local organization dedicated to beekeeping here in the city. And through those encounters, we just continued to become more educated about the presence and plight of honeybees here in the whole country, but in the city in particular. And we kept encountering these bees. So whether it was a feral colony that would swarm and take up residence in our street trees, or several instances of bees living in cavities of our trees, we kept interacting with these bees more and more and more, and we finally said, well, what the heck, let's just start a program. And it's a lot. It sounds like it's intensive, and it's really not. What we do is we've put together several hive boxes, and we'll capture swarms if they come to reside in our trees or in trees adjacent to public space that property owners are concerned about. A swarm of bees can be 30,000 or so bees strong.
Oh my gosh!
And it can startle people. And so we're keen to. They're quite docile, and so we're keen to capture those bees and give them a nice home, because a wild or a feral colony of bees, honeybees, is a colony that has really good genetics, and it's able to overcome all of the environmental stresses that bees are otherwise facing. So we want to support that. We want to support those bees in the environment. And sometimes they stay with us for several years, and other times they don't like the new digs we've given them, and they leave there too.
And they're producing great honey. Earl, thank you so much for coming in, giving us some of your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry.
You have been listening to DDOT Delivers. I'm Terry Owens. Our guest today was Earl Eutsler. He is the Associate Director of the District Department of Transportation. And we hope you'll come back and check us out the next time. Have a great day, everybody.